Howdy everybody and welcome! Paradox Interactive has just released their new, rather heavily anticipated Grand Strategy title. While not the overly community requested and memed about Victoria 3, Imperator Rome is a long-awaited sequel to Europa Universalis Rome. For the ones that have played Paradox tiles before, you'll feel somewhat at home and comfortable with Imperator and many of its systems, especially stats. There are so many stats. Imperator Rome is a real-time strategy game. However, unlike the games that many would think of in relation, such as Age of Empire or Total War, this is a grand strategy game, built off from the regular political and military-based strategy titles and enhanced. Now, for the individuals that are uninitiated, I'll give a quick rundown. Paradox Interactive has 4 main grand strategy series, that being Crusader Kings, Europa Universalis, Victoria, and Hearts of Iron. While all of these are grand strategy titles and share many similarities, the main mechanical focus and time period are different between all of them. Crusader Kings focuses more on ruler traits and events, Europa Universalis focuses more on macro nation building, Victoria focuses on micro nation building, and Hearts of Iron focuses more on technology and warfare. I'm pretty certain that many fans got offended from those statements, and I don't apologize. EU Rome and Imperator Rome have essentially blended the focuses of these games together in some way, giving players an experience that encompasses the major mechanical factors from all previous series to some degree. If you don't like sinking hours into a war over a few provinces along the Adriatic, this game isn't really for you. But if you're someone like me, and that just appeals to you on a deep carnal level, and you can't possibly rest until every single one of those bastards is bleeding out their barrels before you, then my friend, you've come to the right place. Upon starting up the game, you get a menu that just screams strategy game, or a textbook. Both get me equally excited, with options for both single and multiplayer. Multiplayer is where games such as this shines the most, assuming you can find individuals that are willing to spend weeks of their lives as you are, but honestly, who isn't up for it? Imperator Rome is set during the period between the fall of Alexander the Great's empire to the formation of the Roman Empire, giving players a 450-year time window to choose from, with playable nations spanning from the Iberian peninsula all the way into India. Unlike the lunacy of CK2, every single one of these nations are playable at vanilla, even if many you wouldn't want to bother playing. After selecting the nation that you desire to play as, you will be accosted by numbers, so many damn tabs that you can't click away from, and a general feeling that, "Now you fucked up!" But as the instruction manual states, don't panic, it'll be okay. On the top of the screen from left to right, you'll see your money which you use to buy things, manpower which you use to replenish your armies, military power that are essentially used to adopt military traditions or take other military related actions, civic points that are meant to be used for technological innovations and improving the country internally. You have oratory power, which is used for making territorial claims, enacting laws, improving relations, and many more things. Religious power that is used for sacrifices. I'm sorry, pig, I didn't want to. These sacrifices grant the nation various bonuses and aids in the stability of the nation. Also, right after is stability, which is simply how stable your nation is. Aggressive expansion is next, which every EU4 player knows is just another number. And finally, you have tyranny, which is essentially if you do bad thing, people will remember. In Imperator, you set your own goals. You can essentially choose who you play, how you play, what you want to do, and how to do it. There is no single way to play the game, and it'd be very unlikely that you would play the same way twice, even as the same nation. But depending on the scenario and your own desires, you'll be managing anything from a large empire like Rome and Carthage to a small nation such as the Germanic tribes and expanding it as you see fit. You can focus more on internal economic building, expansion via diplomacy, trade routes, etc. or be focused more on warfare and expanding your empire through the blood and mantle of war. But you gotta be careful, as the more warring that you do gives a greater chance for a commander to incite a civil war, and units becoming loyal to him over the state. And even a bronze bull will only be able to cook up so many traitors, so you gotta be sure to grant your soldiers rewards for doing a good job at not dying after the campaign. If you focus more on trading, you can set up individual trade routes and get various bonuses from having a surplus of a particular good, and various bonuses for exporting goods as well. While this won't save you against a larger nation that wants to nom you, it does grant a different playstyle that can assist in keeping the game interesting. However, it is difficult to enjoy a game when economic sliders are not implemented. Like, seriously, this is depressing. I want my sliders. While so far this game is a blast to play, it suffers from the same problem that all Paradox titles like this suffer when they first get released, and that would be the lack of depth. Now, I don't mean that in saying that the game itself isn't in depth, that's the exact opposite, but here are a few examples. The amount of random events in the queue seems somewhat lacking. There are very particular events depending on the path that you as a player have taken, but getting the exact same event repeated over and over can come across as a bit samey somewhat quickly. Another example would be the music in-game, which, while fantastic, is noticeably shorter than previous titles. One of the biggest problems that I personally have with the game is the lack of building options. Only 4 buildings exist that you can construct in your provinces. Now, while having 50 or more structures is a bit much, I'm looking at you, EU4. I'm pretty certain that more than 4 could have been added for provincial improvements, even back during that time period. They had more than 4 buildings. But all of these can and almost certainly will be fixed and adjusted as more patches and updates for the game comes out. Another issue I guess I can mention, even though it's simply the nature of these games, is the time investment. But honestly, y'all know how much of an addiction these games are, and you know that you need it. As per usual with Paradox titles, 200 hours is joked about as the tutorial period. It'll take a good many hours of gameplay for players to really learn the ins and outs as to how Imperator Rome and its mechanics fully work. If you've played other Paradox titles, you'll have a basic understanding of some of the mechanics, but it'll still take some time to get used to everything that the game has to offer. In conclusion, I can fully recommend this game to individuals that are looking for a different grand strategy fix, or to try to get back into this style of game. If you're someone that hasn't played a game like this before, I'd be a tad bit wary to recommend it to you first off. Other Paradox titles like Crusader Kings 2 and Europa Universalis 4 are much cheaper, and they'll give you a general idea as to whether or not you like the style of game that Imperator Rome is. If you're a veteran, then you may be a bit disappointed by the somewhat empty feeling that the game can get, but more will be added in the future as the game gets worked on more. We can only hope that it won't be another DLC sink.